What do you do when your family is not a source of joy? I'm not talking necessarily only about my family. It could be you or me or your friends. I would like us to question the expectations that we have of each other, especially when they're unmet, unspoken of, and undiscussed. Hi, fam. Welcome to another episode of Bidun Sukkar, where talks are not filtered and not sugar coated. It's been a minute. I was traveling and then I got sick and then I reprioritized my life and now I'm back. um, so I'm a bit nervous, as always, about this episode. لأنه it's a bit overdue. So this topic actually came up a while ago. And صراحة I've been avoiding it لأنه I didn't have a say, but I had a lot to say. But now I will say it all. Um, so, it's been a while, and all I talk about is my relationship with myself, my family, my mom, my husband, my work, my cats. And ca- uh, how do I say this? I realized that actually there's one relationship that we, as people, and especially Arab, we don't speak about. And it's that relationship with your siblings. And to say the least, I've had a roller coaster of a relationship with my siblings. But I think it's one of those relationships that really, really, really matter to us and really is a fundamental part of who we are, but we don't give it the attention that it deserves or it requires. And to prep for this episode, I asked on my Instagram account, my personal and my professional. Professional, this is a podcast, but okay, you know what I mean. um, 3 questions. Do you differ from your siblings? What makes you different? And what role should a sibling have? And this is something I've been debating with myself and other people about. And again, this is something we don't look at. And I think it's often neglected under the guise, and no, it's family, it doesn't matter. But I reached a place in my life where I'm like, no, it matters. And it's not enough. Being a family member is not enough. So I asked on my platforms 3 questions. Do you differ from your siblings? Yes or no? How is the relationship with you and your siblings? And what role should your siblings have with you or within the family? And a lot of you actually answered that it's strained or tricky. And only a handful few said it's amazing, it's great. And I think that's an insight. And a lot of people come from different backgrounds that said that. What came out unanimously was everyone said that they differ. And I think that was always something that we always wondered, like how we all grew up in the same household with the same parents and all of that. But there's new content and studies and opinions, especially from the suddenly very famous psychiatrist or psychologist, or I don't know actually what he does, but everyone listens to him and his voice is very soothing. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name even right. Gabor Mate or Mate, I don't know. And he said, and this is really has been really eye opening, that not one child experienced their parents in the same way, because you might be born to parents who are younger, happier, less fulfilled maybe, and less financially stable, while your sibling might be born into parents who are less happier together, maybe more successful, more financially put together with another sibling. So what you experience as a sibling is very different than what your sibling actually experienced with their parents. So I think we need to start removing that shame and the invalidation from each of siblings' experiences. But let me take it on my side. So I'm a bit complex as always. So as you might know from my other episodes is that I come from a divorced household from at a very young age. So I grew up with my older brother, with my father, and my younger brother grew up with our mom in a different country. So that alone makes me, in one side, the youngest child, on the other side, the middle child. So it's a recipe for disaster. one thing that was common in both sides is I was the only daughter or the only female. And what I want to bring to light is the expectations that we grew up with our siblings, especially لما تكون أنت البنت وعندك أخوة شباب. And خاصة back then, again, like I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, the expectations that you have, the society put together on what a brother should be and what a sister should be, were very gender biased or gender role based, which meant that your brother becomes an extension of your father and the authority. And I became under the mercy of men, especially my brother and my dad. And when you tie that with immaturity and tie that with trauma, that's not a recipe for success. But on the other hand, and obviously he was given all the freedom he needed and wanted without permission. On the other side, when I was asking why things are unfair, all I was told is you both have different private parts. And I have to be okay with that. And obviously knowing me, that was never okay with me and that was never enough. And I think this is where my feminist self emerged. But also, supposedly, according to our taqalid wa adat wa afkar, the man or the boy or the brother has all these freedoms, but also comes with a responsibility of taking care of the family, leading on, being the provider, continuing the role of the father. This is why you have the authority. But my question to you is, what happens when all of that doesn't work? When the brothers or the males in the family take on that role of authority and freedom, but not accountability. What I'm trying to say is I've been realizing recently is as the role that I took on myself. And I think we don't realize the invisible roles that we take up in our families. What is your role in your family? Because most likely, kids always try to create balance in the family, even when the family is completely imbalanced. So the person who's going to be chaotic, there's a counterpart that will be peaceful. The person who'll create jokes, تلطف الجو, there's someone who's going to create all the chaos and all the misery. It's always going to be like that. But how did that impact you and how you led your life? Specifically professionally. I'll take it on me. So let's say I'm the youngest daughter. I'm used to doing things on my own, but also I'm used to someone opening the door, but I'm also used to taking permission, which made me practice a lot of self-betrayal. And that's on me. But that's how I grew up, right? But what about you? Whether you're the older or the younger or the middle child, what did you do? How did that impact your life? How did that impact your relationships? How did that impact the way you lead a business, lead a meeting? So I've been very aware of that situation. But also what came to light recently in my life is the invisible role, as I was telling you, that I took up on myself, which was the connector, the mediator. I had to step up when no one stepped up. I took up my dad's caregiving when no one asked me. And I did a lot of those things, and that created a lot of resentment. So what do we do when we have resentment with our siblings, between us and our siblings? Do we even talk about it? Do we voice our expectation from each other? Do they know what you need from them and in what way? Because I reached the conclusion that no matter what I do, my family and my siblings will never support me and love me the way I need them to love me and support me. And that's up to me to take it or leave it. But also, I voiced my needs. So they're telling me in different ways they cannot accommodate those needs. So what do I do with it? What do you do when your family is not a source of joy? I'm not talking necessarily only about my family. It could be you or me or your friends. I would like us to question the expectations that we have of each other, especially when they're unmet, unspoken of, and undiscussed. We just expect them. And I think no one really knows what they are. And then what does that mean? And where does that leave us? Have you taken the time to discuss what you need from your family and your siblings specifically? Should there be a role for your siblings? And when people answered on my Instagram, a lot of people said, I want unconditional support or with support without judgment, but at a distance. There's always even in our answers, we had contradictory statements. It was very hard to understand, what do we really want from our siblings? And again, do we sit down and think about it? And do we give them what they need? And do we acknowledge their efforts? And do we say thank you and I'm sorry? Did anyone say thank you to you when you took on that burden of planning a family, whatever? Did anyone said thank you to you or I'm sorry for taking up responsibility of a parent or a sibling? Should they have told you that? The short answer is yes, they should have. It just, I think it's sad and it's a shame that this is another relationship that we ignore. And it's another relationship that we don't give its appropriate weight the way we would give to strangers or friends or partners. And I think that we undermine how much they trigger us لأنه they get to us because we see what we couldn't have through them. We always wonder why are they being like that? But also don't we wonder why did we take the roles that we took with them? Is it time to let go of the weight that we are carrying that no one asks us to carry and no one will thank us for it? Whether a lot of you told me that you actually are the parental figure, you're actually leading, you're actually taking care, you're wondering why they're not up on their feet, and you take on that responsibility and it turns into something of some sort of expectation that they didn't ask you of, especially when we're older. I'm not talking about when we're 18 or 16 or 12. I'm talking about when you're in your mid 20s to your 30s to your 40s, because we hold on to those things and we never talk about them. So I want you to reassess the relationship with your siblings if you have any, if not your cousins or your friends. And again, do we set the right expectations and what should their role be? Because I asked my little brother to reframe our relationship and I gave him that freedom because no one has given us that freedom. He moved recently to Dubai and I told him, how do you want this relationship to be between me and you and my older brother? It's on you. And to be honest, I still don't have an answer from him. And I took a role of an observer to see where that goes because I no longer want to ask for space where there is no space for me. And I no longer want to force interactions and relationships with whomever that don't work or try to fit them in a box that they don't even know it exists, you know? And I think it's only fair. So I think from now on, I'm just trying to mirror whatever you're putting in. You'll get out of me as much as you put in. And I think that's only fair and also less painful. And the other thing is there's a theory that is scientific, regardless of where I found it. It's about orchid children versus dandelion children. And dandelion children tend to be the majority, while orchids tend to be the minority. So what they found was dandelions are the people who are the children who flourish regardless of whatever hardship you put them in, environments you put them. The orchids are the ones who need very, very, very specific environments and tend to be highly sensitive people. But what they saw is when orchids succeed, they outperform the dandelions. What are you? Which one are you? I mean, if you haven't guessed by now, I'm obviously the orchid because I'm highly sensitive and never love any or like any environment I'm in, and I have to have specific things to make me flourish. And did I flourish for yet? I don't know. But it's a thing to consider. What are you? What are your siblings? How do you guys work? How did your upbringing impact you? How was your exposure to your version of parents impacted you and how you became? And how do you deal with it right now? What is your responsibility or what should you be your responsibility to your siblings? Should it remain as the distance? Should it just be unconditional support? What do you do when you're triggered by them? Have you looked into why they trigger you? Have they become part of your joy or pain? And what happens if you're their part of your joy or pain? You know, I think being Arab also is a layer of complexity on its own because you have these expectations and these taqalid, these adat, these afkar that sometimes you cannot get out of it, especially between البنت والولد. And it's very hard to break free from them and reframe them. It took me a very long time to stop asking permission from my older sibling. It took me a very long time to be independent. It also took me a very long time to realize that I boxed myself and my brother into those taqalid and expectations. But this is all we knew. I would love to change all of that. I would love to remove all those expectations. I would love to remove this imbalance in energy and imbalance in authority and imbalance in I know more and I know better, you know? And also, I think parents should never, ever tell an older child to take care of the younger child. Why should they take care of another sibling, of another human being, when they can barely take care of themselves? I think that also builds in a resentment. Again, I don't have kids, so maybe I'm just making up things that you shouldn't listen to me. But we build these paths for people. We disarm the younger ones. We make them entitled. We over rely on the older ones, and that's never fair. And the middle child is usually forsaken. Like, what are we doing, really? So yeah. So siblings, back to siblings before I continue ranting. If I were to answer those three questions, how is my relationship with my siblings? How do I differ from them, and how? And finally, how would I reframe the role of the siblings? First one is, my relationship with them is a roller coaster. I want it to be more consistent. Do I differ from them? I think so, a lot, but at the same time, we have some similarities. The last one is, should it be? I think it's a nice to have if they're involved in your life and they're really good friends with you. But I think also to give them space to be whomever they want, but also don't expect everyone to be there for you. And they don't need to be there for you. Again, if they can and if they are, that's amazing. You are privileged. But sometimes our closest people don't know us enough, or the way we want them to get to know us. Or they know versions of us that are no longer there and they stick to it. So, how do we reintroduce ourselves to our siblings? Should we do that? Do you want to do that? Would you be able to do it? There's so much to say about it. It's a tricky topic. And again, I'm still exploring it, and I'm exploring the role that I've been taking up in my life. And even with Budun Sukkar right now, why am I the person who keeps coming up with uncomfortable conversations? Why am I the person stepping up when no one is asking me? Why am I doing these things that no one expects you from? What am I trying to heal? What am I trying to address? What am I trying to compensate for? So what I've done this year is I took a step back. I stopped planning Mother's Day. I stopped planning birthdays. I stopped trying to help my brothers communicate with each other when they couldn't communicate to each other. And I stopped asking, and I stopped sharing. Unfortunately, now they see my life unfold on social media the way you can't see it. Do I want more? Yes. Is it gonna happen? I don't think so. If it's gonna happen, it's not gonna be the way I want it to happen. Will I be okay with it? I'm gonna I'm gonna let you know. That's all I can say. So yeah, what are your thoughts? How are you and your siblings? Where are you and your siblings? um, I have one more episode to go, and this will end season 2 of Bidun Sukar, and I will start season 3 of Bidun Sukar very soon. Let me know if you have more topics that you would like my take on it, because it's always controversial and it's always fun. I'll see you soon.